Welcome back, everybody. Man, the CEA skyboxes just look fantastic on PC. Hope you're still enjoying Reach. Today I have a big hodgepodge of tips to share with you guys for my controller settings, sensitivity, talking about magnetism on mouse, as well as controller, and then going over Gandhi hopping, Strongsiding, and a bunch of other stuff. Why don't we dive into my controller settings? Now, use whatever is comfortable for you. That's the most important thing. We talked about my PC keybinds in the last tip video, but today I want to talk about my recommendations for your controller. When we come through here, the crouch behavior, I definitely want to encourage you guys to set it to hold instead of toggle. We went over this earlier, but there is a technique called Gandhi hopping. This technique is when you jump during a gunfight and you spam crouch, you slightly shift the hitbox, basically. It's tougher for the opponent to land the final headshot on you. As I mentioned in an earlier tip video, it's not really recommended for you to jump at the beginning of a gunfight. Jumping is usually something a player reserves for the end of a shot string when they're one shot, because when you jump in Halo, you can't reverse directions. This isn't Halo 4 or 5 where you have a thrust pack and you can throw in one of those last minute dodges. No, this is a situation where experienced players, when they see you jump, they know the direction you're going and are going to be able to predict it and land shot strings. However, when you're at the end of your life, basically, when you're about to die, you're one shot and you're still in a gunfight with somebody, Gandhi hopping is a really good desperation move. That's why I recommend having your crouch behavior set to hold. You can also Gandhi hop on both PC and on controller. I know there's a lot of PC players who don't understand the reason they can't crouch, and I'll go over that real quickly. At full speed, I'm on controller right now, you can't crouch. You cannot crouch in Reach at full speed. You can only crouch at like walking speed and a little bit faster, like right there's the threshold, okay? But on keyboard, mouse and keyboard, okay, there is no variable speed input. It's all or nothing, right? So in order to enter a crouch, you need to be like below the walking speed velocity, if that makes sense, okay? So you can still Gandhi hop, but it's just you don't have a variable input. But most people, when they're strafing, nobody's really putting in like a tiny walking speed strafe. No, they're just changing directions quickly and timing the crouches in their gunfights to match. So yeah, long story short, hold to crouch. For my button layout, I play bumper jumper. I know a lot of players have been using this since Halo 3 and onward. The logic here is you always want to have your right thumb planted firmly on the right control stick. Any motion that requires you to pull your thumb off of that stick over to the face buttons causes you to lose opportunities to maintain accuracy on an enemy. Now, if you claw, it really doesn't matter what button layout you're using, just whatever is easiest to press and whatever is most comfortable for you. Clawing is the act of bringing your index finger over onto the face buttons so that you can keep your right thumb planted on the right thumbstick to keep aiming at all times, and you can still do things like I'm still aiming, I'm looking around, I can swap weapons when I need to, all that jazz. Now, if you have like an elite controller or maybe one of those, the FPS Dominator or Strike Pack things, basically paddles on the back of your controller, which are really awesome. I hope the next generation of consoles brings that thing standard. Then it doesn't really matter all that much. But bump jumper allows you to jump, which is a very important part of Halo's movement sandbox, without taking your right thumb off of the thumbstick. I highly recommend, whether you're clawing or whatever button layout that you're using, that you make sure you're not removing your right thumb from the right control stick. Or if you do, just make sure it's as little as possible. D-pad and buttons I leave standard. You can swap these, which is really strange, but it's cool to see all these options. Bumpers and triggers, default, jumper. This is actually really interesting. They just added this in with the MCC Reach update. It essentially allows, when you're using jetpack, to be activated by holding the jump button while you're airborne. Think of it like Destiny. It's basically how your Destiny jump jet kind of works, which is pretty cool, worth checking out. I don't see a downside to it other than just the fact that if you're already used to playing it the old way, which many people, learned how to claw specifically for the jetpack in Reach, then this might not be useful. I think it's pretty rad, and I wonder if they could extend that over on the PC side of things for Spacebar players. Look inversion, flight inversion, all that stuff I keep the same. Aim control, you absolutely want to have this on modern unless you have a reason to play on the classic setting. Modern was added not too long ago, I think it was earlier this year, but it radically improved diagonal motions. When you're holding, let's do here, when you're holding up left or up right, kind of at that angle, it is much smoother and more predictable on modern settings than it is on the classic one. It used to kind of do like this hitching, and then the acceleration would get all odd. Nothing is going to feel exactly how it did back on the 360, but I think the modern setting is actually going to feel a whole lot better for you longtime legacy players than the classic option. Auto look centering, absolutely disable it. Vibration I've talked about previously, I disable it and I highly recommend most players disable it. Having something shaking in your hand when you're trying to make small, minute changes to the control stick, I don't think is a benefit. However, there's still pros who use both vibration and those that don't. I play on both 4 for my look sensitivities. It is cool that they let you do, different vertical and horizontal, but 1-to-1 is what I want. So 4 is what I play at currently. Now, there are pros who play on 3 and below and 6 and above, but for the majority of pro players, it's like between 3 and 6, okay? You can play on 2 and below. There are a few pros who I think play on 2. And then, of course, there are pros who play on higher levels. You can actually look most of that information up right now. Find the sensitivity that works well for you, but the long-term recommendation that I give players is you need to stick with the sensitivity longer than just a day or 2. It's something you need to commit to for a week before you decide if you like it or you don't. Play styles also coincide with your sensitivity. If you're a hyper-aggressive player who's continually flanking and needing to be really quick and agile, then you're going to run a higher sensitivity. Whereas if you're going to be an anchor and you're holding down sight lines for your teammates and you really need to land those shot strings at a distance, lower sensitivity will coincide. So it's something that you need to land on, settle on, practice with, and allow your muscle memory to accumulate. I don't recommend touching the look acceleration unless you have a reason to, unless you're like really an experienced player who's ready to adjust the controller a little bit further. It basically changes how quickly the maximum turn speed is reached. Again, one of those things that I wouldn't monkey with unless you're ready to commit to learning it for a long time. And then the radial and the axial dead zone is to help with stick drift issues. So if you don't have any stick drift issues, I don't recommend really changing or touching these. I do recommend Control Freaks. I think they're pretty cool. I use them on my controller. I just use them for the right thumbstick. It adds some more height to the thumbstick and it gives you a little bit more leverage to do those fine-tuned small moves. I know it's kind of an old school throwback, but I'm an old school throwback kind of player. So if you're interested, I have some Amazon affiliate links down below so you can check out the ones that I'm currently using or just use whatever's comfortable for you guys. There's so many different controllers nowadays that I feel like people either have thumbstick razors or have a setup that they think is comfortable for them. Next up, I want to actually show what Strongsiding is here. So me and my good buddy Epos Vox ended up hopping into some custom games to test out magnetism and Strongsiding. Strongsiding, like I mentioned, is where you look at the floor while you are running away from an engagement. It lowers your head hitbox, as you can see here, and can make landing that very final headshot a little bit tougher. I remarked in a previous video how I feel like sometimes on mouse, it seems a little bit harder to tag an enemy who's one shot, who's Strongsiding away, than on the controller. And I was curious if the magnetism value operated differently. Now, Epos and I tested a lot of different scenarios here, and I couldn't find anything conclusive that indicated that. So maybe it's just a different feeling deep down that I'm experiencing here. I will keep exploring, and if you guys have any discoveries on that front, let me know. But Strongsiding is quite useful in Halo Reach. As you can see, the difference between a head up and a head looking down is a big deal. Times to utilize Strongsiding: when you know you're in a losing situation, you need to evade and recharge your shields and come back to fight in a different area. Strongsiding will allow you to escape, hopefully, more often, so long as you're doing it correctly. Like if you look down at the floor and you have no idea where you're actually running, if your map knowledge isn't quite there, then if you're running into a wall, you're just going to die. So use it sparingly. It shouldn't be all the time, but it is a useful technique and Reach, and it seems to not really have much of a difference between controller and mouse. What I did notice when I was shooting with controller and mouse is looking at the maximum range at which you can get magnetism to trigger on both controller and PC. And what was strange here was when you were at the very edge of that magnetism radius, okay, your crosshair does not need to be red for you to have the magnetism value. That goes for both controller and mouse. However, when leaving the mouse and the controller static, not moving it at all, at the very edge of that magnetism radius, okay, firing shots without moving the crosshairs, sometimes we would have shots that would connect and other times we wouldn't, leading me to believe there's some sort of error ratio involved here where you have X percentile chance for the magnetism to hit at this spot. Now, again, to get super technical, your player models do breathe in Halo Reach. They do move slightly up and down, and that could be influencing this. But I did want to share with you guys, throughout all the testing that I found, I couldn't see any significant differences between mouse or controller when it comes to that magnetism radius. So, at the end of the day, up close still feels really darn good on a controller. Long distance and sniping still feels great on a mouse. And there's just small player bottles in this game, and strafing is quite quick, so I don't really know. I don't have any conclusive takeaways from this whole thing, except I'll keep experimenting and trying to learn more. And any updates that you guys have, let me know about it in the comments down below, whether you're a mouse player or a controller player. So with that said, I think it's going to do it for today's video. Let me know your controller setup down in the comments below and what you like to use. I'll continue doing my best to experiment and try and learn more about the differences between mouse and controller, but anything you guys learn about, let me know as well. Thanks so much for the support on the channel. If you guys want to continue to see the uploads coming, subscribe and hit the little alarm bell so you know when the next upload is on the way. Follow me over on Twitter at @BBKDragoon, and any suggestions for future video topics or tips would be greatly appreciated. Leave those in the comments. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you again very soon.